Hey everybody, it's David. Never let a crisis go to waste. Yeah, that is some really good advice. So I'm going to talk about a bit of a crisis. It is May 2025 when I am recording this, and you may recall that in April, just a few short weeks ago, we had what many people, myself at moments, thought was a crisis, a tremendous stock market crash. Well, here we are in May, end of May, and it looks like things have recovered. And there are many important lessons to learn whenever the stock market does something like this. Lessons for you to learn, lessons for me to learn. And that's what we are going to talk about. Let's not waste this crisis. Let's come out of it learning something and taking some lessons for the next time, and it will happen, for the next time when the stock market crashes. Are you ready? Hey, let's talk about it. Hey everybody, it's David at David in Progress, where we talk about three things: achieving financial independence, retiring early, and doing your best to live your best life now from the perspective of a regular guy. If you're new to this channel, I'm someone who got laid off from my job at the end of 2023, retired at 56 as a result of that. I'm dealing with stage 2 heart failure and a couple of other things, but life is great, and that's what we talk about on this channel. Thank you so much for joining me. So real quick, here are, just to remind you, a few statistics of what happened in that short period in April. At its peak, the stock market, I have it written down over here, dropped a total of 17%, and that drop for the S&P 500 was the fifth worst two-day drop since 1950. And another thing for me that made it really different is this was the first time I had experienced a market drop like that while early retired. And what that means is that my bucket of money is the bucket of money that I am actually living off of. So really traumatic as far as how it could have gone for me, but there are things that I did that made it not as bad as it could have been. So for those of us that are early retired or already retired or planning for retirement, how you react when the market crashes, whenever there are those sudden drops, and really when there are those big jumps. Those are important things for you to understand your emotions and think about how you are going to handle this when it happens again. The way you react tells you something. It tells you how ready you are for these situations. And if you think about it, it can give you some lessons of what you need to do to prepare for the future. Let me tell you what I did during this crash. Yes, I felt the emotion, but I did not take that into actions, meaning I didn't go in and make any changes. Why? Well, I had made changes back in January. One of my commitments to myself, now that I am early retired, is I will only make major changes with my accounts twice a year. I'm going to do that in January, and I'm going to do that in June. And when I do that, I will balance out things. I will also do the selling that I need to do to pay for that next 6 months. So back in January, I set things up, and I was probably a little late doing it since I'm already early retired. But back in January, I set up my 3 buckets. I'm doing the 3-bucket system for me. My 3 buckets are equities, and then I have bonds, and then finally I have cash. And as I ladder those things up, I have a video about it to explain further down. I'll put it in the description. But part of my goal with that is to create stability. I have cash, at least a few years of cash there for when things are really going bad and maybe I don't want to take out of that equity fund. I have those bond funds, something I didn't have before my early retirement. You know, bond funds are things that don't really go up much, but they also really typically do not go down a lot either. And then finally, I have the equity bucket, which now is, gosh, I think it's just about 65% of my total income or my total buckets. And that just sits there. So I did not change anything because in my mind, I knew that if this sustains, if this drop just keeps going, I have a few years of cash just sitting there in my retirement funds that I am going to be able to take out. I am going to ignore all of those losses. Now, when I was working, very different. When I was working and these crashes came, I actually got really excited because when you're working and you're not using that money, when the crashes come, that is great. That means that if you are still consistently investing, still consistently putting money into your 401k or your taxable account or whatever, you are getting a bargain. That thing is dropping, you're buying it when it is less expensive, and when the market recovers, which historically it always does eventually, that income, those things that you bought during that time are going to be far more valuable. So that is great. Very different now that I'm early retired. I don't have money setting aside. I am not contributing to the HSA. I am not contributing to a 401k. I am using this money to live from. So when I looked at my 3-bucket strategy, I did that with volatility in mind. More importantly, I made a commitment to myself that when the crash comes, that I would not panic. I would not panic as far as any actions. I might have been feeling it emotionally, and I'll tell you that I did, because this was going to be the first time that I would have to pull from that cash bucket. But I'm not going to go in and make some big changes. I have a Facebook friend who was posting about all the stuff going on at that time. And one of his friends, who is a financial advisor, put a note in there about how he had all of his clients pull 100% of their money, both in their taxable fund and in their 401k, into cash. This guy thought it was going to be a 2008 thing where people were going to go down 30-35%, things that have happened before. And I had a little bit of interaction with him. I asked him, do you think this is a panic move? And he thought it was a prudent move. I really kind of wish I could reach back to him again and ask him what happened. He even admitted that his clients were going to be paying short-term capital gains taxes because of the money that they took out, but he felt like the return would be enough to mitigate that. I don't know. So what are the lessons that we can learn, or that I have learned from the crash, especially being different now that I'm actually early retired? Well, lesson number 1 is to expect markets up and downs and just kind of ignore them. Volatility is not a bug, it is a feature. It is a part of the life that you are going to have if you are someone who is investing. Just accept it and know that it is going to happen. Number 2 is have a plan and stick with it. If you are wobbling on your plan every time things are getting a little bit out of control, either up or down, and you're going in and making changes, or maybe you're feeling extreme stress, well, maybe you need to have a better plan. Maybe you need to move to a more conservative mix because you're learning that your risk tolerance is not that great. The key is to actually have a plan, and have it be a plan that you have committed to stick with no matter what happens. Number 3, I say reflect on your emotions. I'm lucky. I have been doing this investing thing for many, many years. And I'm a bit of a nut as far as the way that I track everything. I have spreadsheets of my returns, or our returns, going all the way back to almost 30 years. I'm also a journaler. And so I was able to go back and look at 2022, things went down 18%. And that one in particular, I went in and looked at how I was feeling at that time. And I wrote little notes to myself, actually, when I looked at it, about what I would do when I was actually in retirement. And basically, down market me back in 2020 was telling down market me in 2025, hey David, don't panic. You've been working on this plan for a long time. Don't make any changes. So if you felt something then, and maybe you're feeling a lesson now, perhaps it's time to write that future note to yourself. Say, hey, dear Mr. Future Investor, you went through this in April of 2025. Here's how you felt. Here's what you did. Now, when this happens again, pull the note up and be committed that this time, this is what I am not going to do. These are behaviors that I'm not going to feel. More importantly, these are changes I'm not going to make. Or perhaps on the other side, hey, you stuck it out and did just fine. Here's a note to tell you that this time you are going to be just fine again. And that gets to number 4, which is commit to your plan. Put in writing, make a contract with yourself that the next time that this happens, you are going to stick with whatever plan that you have. And make sure you have a good one. Again, go back to look at April. Recency bias is a real thing that most of us are stuck into what has happened most recently to us. And look at what happened. Stress test it. Think about it. If we're back to basically zero, this is kind of like halftime. The team is in the locker room. You are huddled together. You know, you are self-coaching yourself to say, okay, when we get back out there on the field, this is our game plan. This is what we are going to do. I am treating this a little bit like January. Once I get to that June date, I am going to do a little bit of tweaking. So break out that coach's manual and talk to yourself and say, when I get back out on the field, here is what I'm going to do differently. So yep, the April crash, it was a test. Reflecting back like I am now, I'm going to think that, you know, hey, I think I passed the test. But what about you? Did you pass the test? Did you just do okay? Did you stick with your plan? Did you panic? Or maybe you learned some lessons about what you're going to do differently to prepare for your retirement. I'd love to hear from you. Down in the comments, leave me some lessons that you learned from this crash that you are going to take forward into the next one, the next one that is going to happen. All right, well, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being part of this channel. If you got any value at all, of course, I encourage you to give me that thumbs up. Leave me a comment. Join in the conversations. I would love to hear from you. I love questions and I love the interaction. Thank you so much for being part of David in Progress.